Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the Netflix movie The Gray Man. So, warning, we are going to spoiler territory here. So, if you haven't seen it, you can go check it out on Netflix, and then you can come back and watch our segment to see what we had to say about it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right into this. So, The Gray Man is a movie that has actually a couple of big names in it. It has the lead actor from Bridgerton, Jessica Henwick, Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, uh, Billy Bob Thornton, and Alfre Woodard are all are all characters in this movie. And so I remember I didn't know that all these people were going to be in the movie. I only really knew that and Anna de Armas. But the only person the only people I really knew were going to be in it were Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. And the reason I wanted to see it wasn't because of Ryan Gosling, because I'm not a real fan of Ryan Gosling. I kind of feel like he's kind of the same in most of his movies, and even in this movie, it felt very similar to his character in Drive, which feels similar to how he's been in other movies too. But I saw
Even
that
La
Chris
La
Evans,
Land.
even La La Land to a point, yeah, it's weird. But like, I remember when I saw Chris Evans was in this movie as a villain, I was just like, oh, I have to see this because I always remember Chris Evans in in Scott Pilgrim versus the World as a villain and how much fun he was having in that role and how much fun he was in that role to see him. So but normally we see him playing like the good guy, the sweetheart over the years of we've seeing him act. But now we get to see him be a villain, so I was like, let's see how he does. And for me, I kind of wish he did more, but I still enjoyed his character for what he was in this movie, which was basically just a psychopathic, I'm gonna do whatever the heck I want type character. But for me, this movie is very strange because I remember you told me that your boyfriend felt that the movie was boring. And I was thinking to myself, how can a movie done by the Russo brothers, the people who did Winter Soldier, one of my favorite movies and favorite Marvel film, how could that be a boring movie? And the first half of this movie, I can see it. I can absolutely see it. And I'm not trying to say that I was bored the entire time, but there were times where I did feel like, okay, this is kind of dragging. Let's kind of like pick it up. But then the last half of the movie, I was like all on board with. I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I wanted to watch this movie for. This is like some cool stuff. But the movie definitely feels like a kind of John Wick meets the Bourne Identity type film, and the Bourne Identity was another one of those movies that kind of had a similar feeling where I would never say the Bourne Identity was a bad movie, but there are definite parts in the Bourne Identity that are boring to me that make me not want to watch it again.
Yeah, honestly, it was a little hard for me to get through the first half of the movie. I had to take a couple breaks because I don't know if it's because I was bored or if because I was just generally tired because I had
Right.
quite a long weekend, quite a long weekend. But it did take me quite a bit to get through it. I 100% agree with you with the whole Ryan Gosling thing. I also am not a huge fan of him, but I did enjoy watching Chris Evans be the bad guy again. Like it just kind of reminded me of Knives Out because
What is
Anna was
Knives Out?
in,
How could I forget?
yeah, and but also because Anna was in that too
Mm-hmm.
as the good guy
Yeah.
woman
Person.
person. Like Erica was like, what do I say? um, but yeah, this to me, I was reminded a lot of John Wick and Suicide Squad in the sense that
The new
big,
one or the original?
just the whole concept of Suicide Squad because
Oh, okay.
they're having these guys from
Oh, I see.
prison do their time by serving the government.
Right.
So and but then they can't do anything like at the beginning. Six was like, I know I don't get like palm trees retirement, that kind of plan, but you know, is there a way out of this? Like, do we see an end to this? And Billy Bob Thornton's character says no, sorry. So
basically.
yeah, so essentially I was like, this is just like Suicide Squad, but except for they're not like lunatics and they're not actually bad. They're well, not all of them, but
Not all of them.
it seems like for the most part they are, because I think the guy that the hit that they had to do at the beginning, he wasn't really bad. He just did something bad to the guy that was in charge.
Right, and the guy that's in charge, I forget this actor's name, but it's the lead character from the first season of Bridgerton, the guy that is the main object of affections, and the Duke of Wellington or whatever his name was, I forget his name, but he in this movie he gets really angry, and it seems very weird because he gets extraordinarily angry in that moment when um, Ryan Gosling's character chooses not to take the shot to the point where he like is throwing like dairy products at the window and stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I get that he didn't follow your rule, but this seems like an overreaction to the fact that to what he's done. But then you find out it's tied to the fact that he wanted this guy dead because this guy had some information on him that could incriminate um, this character, and so then it's like okay, so that kind of makes sense. And like for us talking about how the movie is kind of slow, the beginning does kind of start off like just throwing you right into whatever what the movie's going to be about because within the first 15 minutes, the Ryan Gosling is already on the run. He's already kind of like leaving the agency and stuff. Like normally it takes a little longer for something like this to happen. You have to usually build it up and the person finds out about a plot and then they all of a sudden are getting like hunted and tried to be killed. But within the first 15 minutes, he's already defied orders. He's met someone else that's just like him, which is also kind of like the Bourne Identity because they were sending agents to kill each other on that as well. And then he's looking for the information and or looking to see what's on the information and everything. And it turns out to be how this director has been doing ops that are kind of like off the books and that aren't sanctioned and whatnot, and that could get him in trouble. And so they call upon Lloyd, played by Chris Evans, who he seems to like. I felt weird what his connection was. It's like it seems like he was, and I think they said this in the movie, but he's kind of like a freelancer or a contractor that they call on and they give the reign to do whatever he wants, but he's not officially with the government. But as we find out later on, the reason that they kind of associate with him is because he and the other two like directors that we meet in the movie all went to Harvard together, and so they kind of have that connection. And the three of them continue to work together despite it not being great for for any of them really. So, but I enjoyed seeing once we really got the ball moving. I enjoyed seeing the lengths that Chris Evans' character Lloyd was willing to go to try to take down Ryan Gosling, and I will give Ryan Gosling credit. Like he didn't do much in this movie as far and from the in the far as far in the way of like feeling so much like a character, but the most real that he felt to me was how tired he was when he was dealing with these people. There's a moment in this movie that I couldn't help but laugh where he gets stabbed in the hand and he's like, "Oh, come on." And he pulls the knife out of his hand. He's just looking at the guy like, "Really?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I feel you, dude. I feel you." So moments like that, I actually liked Ryan Gosling in this movie, but for the most part, he's still just the same character he always is.
Yeah, I think I kind of like the part where he was like, "Can I comply over there?"
Yeah, I
And
can buy over there. Yeah.
and then he was like, "Okay, does this plan end with me living?" A lot of blood, a lot of blood.
Exactly.
But yeah, I did enjoy the relationship that they established with the niece.
Mm-hmm.
I think her name was Claire.
Mm-hmm.
And how he was like, it's just another Thursday, and then that kind of
Came
resolves.
back.
Yeah, like just trusted me. Although I think it was weird that he just didn't let the agent shoot Chris Evans' character Lloyd, because
Mm-hmm.
she was like, I have a shot, just get him to inch a little bit to the right. Like that would have been so much easier. But then you wouldn't have that fight in the maze by the fountain. But I mean,
And
that's easy enough to
well,
resolve.
I think the other reason for that, I could be wrong, but I think it was because he didn't want her to, like, throughout the movie he was always trying to shield her from seeing the violence of what he did. And so, like, in the beginning when he kills that guy in the house, he's trying to like hide the body so she doesn't see it. At the end of the movie he makes her play the music, and so that she doesn't have to hear it. So I think in that moment maybe the reason he told her not to take the shot was because he didn't want the girl to see this guy, like, killed in front of her. And which, I mean, I'm pretty sure she'll get over it. This is the guy that's responsible for the death of her father, but whatever. I guess
Yeah.
do you, fam?
I think he's the uncle, but
Oh, the
still,
uncle.
same.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
but still, like he let her go, so that would have been like, okay, you can take the shot now.
Yeah, that's also true. Right? Just go to the hedge, and help me kill this guy.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I enjoyed the way, like there was this one bit where Chris Evans uses another guy to shield himself from a grenade. But he
Yes.
gets a little burnt. But I was like, wow, that's totally messed up. But I kind of like how even that little bit is like a really good definition of his character. So I thought that was a well written moment to have in the movie. Um, there was this part where, like going back to the fountain, where he like Ryan Gosling takes the gun apart. He unloads it and then he throws it to kind of surrender the gun. I wish that he did that, but then they didn't, like Chris Evans didn't acknowledge it. And I wish like during the fight he would have picked up the gun and like been like, okay, I got you now, but then the gun's empty. And then
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Gosling says, no one ever throws a loaded gun. I thought that would have been much better than like, because it's like a gimmick, right? They had that line before where they had that whole thing with him
Which is,
tossing the gun to
yeah.
the agent, and then it's like empty and stuff. But this is what it results in. Like he just
It
says
doesn't
it
feel strong
twice.
enough.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
why do we even have this in the movie? But I thought, it would have been much stronger if, they tried to shoot, like someone else besides her tries to shoot the gun, but then there's no ammo in it.
Yeah, like even if he had like taken the ammo out off screen because he knew that he was gonna have to throw the gun, and then like guy picks it up and he pulls it, and then yes, he calls that out. Because I thought that was also weird in the moment when it happened, when like they're in this, because the scene is they're in this hospital and they're trying to chase down this guy that's gotten the drive from them, and so he tosses her a shotgun or something, and then is about to toss the ammo, and she's gone at that point. And then later when she tries to shoot, there's nothing, and then they have this whole exchange about tossing a loaded weapon, and it feels really odd in the moment. I remember watching it and being like, this feels like very odd dialogue, and part of me was like, well, I guess it's kind of like maybe it does feel like this is kind of like more real. Like maybe this is like a kind of more real feeling conversation that two people would have in the real world, and they're going less for a movie feel. But then, yeah, when they bring it back at the end, and that's the payoff, that line where he just kind of like takes it out and then throws it over. I'm like, okay, I don't know that other scene warranted this payoff. It doesn't really feel great.
Yeah, that's like the first thing I would cut out of the movie.
Make your
uh,
movie shorter.
yeah. Um, but yeah, the other thing that I kind of had mixed feelings about was the editing. Because I know it's an action film, but there's a lot of cuts. And I get that for having, an action movie to make it more exciting and stuff. But then you have movies like John Wick, where you don't need to have a lot of edits to make it look exciting as long as you have, like, really good choreography. And so I think that there was a lot of dependence on the camera editing, and they had some cool stuff where like it's kind of like a drone kind of
Mm-hmm.
flying, but like not like aerial shots, but they're like, eye level, and then it goes into
Yeah, they're
aerial
going
and then
through
back down
things.
again, and you
Yeah.
see like it follows the action, and I thought those were cool, but they used that a lot. I feel like one time would have been great because then that would be your money shot, but they did it a bunch of times for like establishing and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I had a very interesting relationship with those shots because on a basic level, I like them because I'm like these are cool, but and I don't know why this feeling I had, but to me, those shots felt like they were in the wrong movie. Like those shots are very dynamic and a lot of the rest of the movie is not shot that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the movie feels like it's meant to be a more grounded, like kind of Jason Bourne. It feels like a very Jason Bourne-esque type film where it's not intended to be so stylized in like the action that's happening. It's meant to kind of be feel kind of more visceral and realistic, right? And so when I see these shots, this feels like these shots belong in a movie that is a little bit more dynamic and even its action scenes and even how these people fight. So the only fight scene I feel like in the movie that kind of felt kind of like almost evoking that level of energy was the fight scene at the end of the movie with Anna de Armas and the other assassin guy that ends up leaving because he doesn't like how they're doing. Like the choreography in that fight was like brutal uh and visceral, but at the same time it was still very stylized. They were like fighting and pulling each other over tables and like the way they were engaging with each other, it felt more stylized than just two dudes throwing haymakers at each other. So, yeah. So
And that's when they
while I
didn't use it.
yeah, right? And so like I like those shots you're talking about, but I don't feel like they feel right in this movie for some reason.
Yeah, like no, I agree. I think, and the reason why is I think because it's like you said, this is a very grounded movie, and the combat is a very, it's either hand to hand or guns, and
Yeah.
there's nothing where they're really playing around with the set or they're like fighting for long periods of time. I think even if they were going to use that shot kind of in that section where you were talking about they're all, having different fights in different places, it would have been cool to like have
Ooh,
that
yeah.
kind of shot where you start with one and then you fly past another one for a little while, like maybe go around them once so that, you can
Hmm.
focus on them more and then you go to the next one. Something like that would have been cool. Um, but just like it just felt like something more like you would see in like Mortal Kombat or
Hmm.
maybe even Mission Impossible where there's different
Yes.
teams in different places and you're following multiple groups of people, but you're really only following like two people at a
People.
time, like fighting each
Mm.
other, maybe another pair in this movie. So it just didn't really seem called for. And like you said, didn't really match the way everything else is shot, where everything is like quick cut, quick cut, quick cut. And then you have this
Mm.
long flying shot. It just doesn't match. And what you really end up with is people noticing that there was this interesting looking shot, but then it felt weird.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because I don't think I felt like that in a movie for a while. Like I can't remember the last time I felt like a shot felt out of place like in the movie. But what you said is 100% right. That same shot would have been right at home in a Mission Impossible movie. No questions asked. He wouldn't even have thought twice about it. But yeah, the other so this movie also has like the whole flashback sequence like you were talking about where it shows him getting acquainted with Claire, and I agree. Like I like the fact that it allowed you to build on their relationship, so that when he got betrayed in that airplane sequence, and he calls, I think I forgot that guy, Fritz or something, uh, when he calls Billy Bob, and Billy Bob basically says, "Hey, they leaned on me. They have my niece," and and then Ryan Gosling immediately is like, "Ah, oh, dang it!" Like, and you realize he knows, and he has a relationship with that little girl, which is why also it's like he's not even that upset about what happened to him, because essentially he could have died in that situation. It's only fortunate. It's very fortunate that he's as good as he is, but he literally could have been killed by those men that just a few minutes ago were protecting him and helping him. So, I I did like that. I did like her inclusion. I like the whole idea that she also had this pacemaker, which was the thing that they were going to be able to use to find her later as well. So I thought that just from a story perspective, like that was a nice way of tying in. Um, we talked about Uncharted and like the whole question about how do people know where to go when they don't have the same information. This was a good way to be like, how do they know where this girl is when they have no way of knowing where they're hiding her, or things like that. I feel like the movie was very smart in how groups of people who were looking for each other in the entire world were able to actually find each other. So that is something I did enjoy.
Yeah, in terms of story and just having like a good thought process about how to piece it together, I think it was pretty solid. There wasn't really any points where I was asking questions like, but how did this happen, or how did they figure this out? Because I think it was pretty well planned. I mean, I wouldn't say that it was like incredibly complex either,
Mm-mm.
but I think they did a good job in the sense of like I was never really taken out of the film, except for
No.
maybe with those like drone shots. But otherwise, like for the story, I guess the only real question I had is like, why doesn't she just snipe the guy? And that's it. But like
Yeah.
my answer was for that was so that they could have a showdown.
Right. Basically, that's why the writers did it, so that this last sequence can happen where we have these two men fighting. But I was disappointed in that fight because it just felt kind of basic, Like we've seen hand-to-hand combat in other movies, and so we know that it can be interesting, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be martial arts. So I got really excited when Chris Evans pulled out the knife, and they have this one cool moment when he's like got the knife in one hand but it's being held by Ryan Gosling, but then he flips it up and then grabs it in the air and then stabs Ryan in the back. Like I wanted to see kind of more stuff like that, because like even the other movie done by the same directors, Winter Soldier, they have a really cool knife sequence in that movie where Winter Soldier once again fights Chris Evans, and they're like tossing the knife around and blocking and everything else like that, and it looks visually interesting and it's exciting, even though it's a hand to hand combat situation. So I was actually I was a little bit disappointed about how that final fight went, considering the history of these directors. We've seen them do we've seen them do Infinity War, we've seen them do Endgame, we've seen them do other movies where they had really good action sequences, and even with the more grounded Winter Soldier, which is kind of like a superhero version of this movie, we've seen how they can handle fight sequences. And so to see a final fight that was weaker than the stuff that they did 7 years ago, kind of it kind of disappointed me.
Yeah, I mean, if you like rewrite it in the sense where like maybe he does struggle for the gun, and like the two of them are kind of fighting over the gun, but then Lloyd ends up getting it, but Ryan Gosling's character just lets him have the gun because he knows that it's empty, but then he like takes it, and then they're like fighting with the gun in the sense of it being a blunt weapon as opposed to a gun. Like that
Yeah.
could have been something more interesting. And then like maybe even like a false gunshot happens where like it somewhat like they have like a close up of one of them like pulling the trigger, probably Lloyd, but then it's really Suzanne or Susanna
Mm.
that actually
Yeah.
shot him, and that's how the fight ends. But I also like just the way it was where Six is has the upper hand, but he doesn't actually finish the job and taking
Mm.
Lloyd out. It's actually Suzanne who shows up and shoots him.
Mm.
So I was a little disappointed with that. I think I would have rather him like kill Lloyd, and then Susan shows up with a gun.
Yeah, and she could still shoot him and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like it did feel very anticlimactic to have it go down that way. On one hand, I kind of understand it because that character had gone through so much. Suzanne had been like just walked all over throughout that entire movie that I was just like, okay, if you kill this character at this point, it's gonna feel in poor taste. So you have to do something with her. And so like with her killing Lloyd, it's like, okay, that's her kind of getting her revenge on this guy that's been nothing but a problem for her. But in reality, Lloyd wasn't the issue for her. It's the other guy, the Bridgerton guy. That's the guy that she needs to like be able to take it out on because he's the one that was putting her in this bad situation to begin with. So it didn't I think that moment is meant to feel kind of like a yeah, she got him back, like she had been abused by this man the entire time and he got his comeuppance by her, she's the one who earned it. And it's like no, like he was a frustration for her. The person that's actually causing her to be in a bad situation, that's giving her stress, that could also put her life on the line, is this other dude that put her in this like predicament in the first place, and who's talking about how he'll actively lie in order to protect himself, even if it costs her to like be floating in the river. So
But then they
I'm
also
yeah.
made her kind of a jerk too at the
Oh yeah,
end.
and she's still a jerk,
Yeah.
and she's still a bad guy.
Because before, like, it wasn't that bad because it just seemed like she was, just not in a position where she could really do anything about it. But then they gave her
Mm-hmm.
this ulterior motive to do this thing, and then they just really made her into a jerk because she's keeping Claire and planning to use Six for her own
Mm-hmm.
agenda. And that
Basically do the same
really,
thing.
yeah, that really turns her into a bad character. Like, not a bad character, but like a
A
negative
villain.
character, a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it needed to lean that way.
Yeah, but I think I know why it leaned that way, and it's because they want to have a franchise, and they want to continue this story in some way. So I think I saw online that they were in talks about doing it. But yes, I think
It's
they're
gonna be the
intending this to.
white man.
Yes, no longer in the gray. Oh gosh. So yeah, but the thing about it is that like if at the prospect of them making a sequel, I don't know that I necessarily want to see it because one of the big draws for this movie for me was Chris Evans. Like that was the like Chris Evans and the Russo brothers. But if I have to watch a sequel and Chris Evans isn't in it, even if it's done by the Russo brothers, but the star is still Ryan Gosling, I'm not as interested in that movie. So I'm like, man, I kind of wish that if you were gonna have a franchise of this, I kind of wish you found a way for Chris Evans to stick around because I like his character. But you know, we'll see. But I think that's why the movie ends the way it does because neither of those two villains get their comeuppance. Neither one of them. The Bridgerton guy is fine. No one is threatening him. He doesn't lose his life, and Suzanne is also fine. She doesn't have her life on the line when they are looking for Ryan Gosling's character at the end of the movie. He's already gone and to go and save Claire and get her out of there, and then the movie ends. So yeah, I don't think for me personally, I'll be as excited to see a sequel. I probably would still watch it anyway, but I definitely wouldn't like be trying to watch it the first weekend of its like release on streaming.
Yeah, no, I think I'd pass. I don't even think I'm gonna give it a thought unless they cast someone else that's really cool that I would want to see. But I don't really see that. Maybe they'll call it the Black Man.
I think that'll be a problematic title for a multitude of reasons.
The Yellow Man, the Red Man, the Brown Man.
Oh God, I think yes, they'll have to work on that for sure. But
They
I
really
think
couldn't have made it any other color.
they really couldn't. They really couldn't, and have it be okay. I think for this movie, at the end of the day, for me, it out of the Russo brothers films that we've seen, which primarily have been superhero films, this is probably near the bottom for me. Um, yeah, it's probably near the bottom for me. I don't even think the movie I wanted to say above it. I don't think it's above that. So it doesn't mean that it's a bad movie, but I do feel like it's a very basic movie. And for an evening, popcorn, Netflix, whatever, just want to watch something because you don't know what else to watch, yeah, it's fine. But I don't think when you walk away from this movie, you're gonna like leave the film being like, oh, I can't wait to tell my friends to watch this, and I can't wait to watch this movie again. I probably will never watch this movie again because it just doesn't have anything in it that makes me want to see it. I might watch that scene at the end of the movie with Anna de Armas fighting that other guy because I think that was like the coolest scene in the movie. But outside of that, I don't think I'm gonna go back to this movie at all.
Yeah, I think I rewatched John Wick 1, 2, and 3 before watching this again. And Uncharted.
Exactly. And Uncharted. Oh man. Oh, wow. Oh guys. Well, that's what we thought about The Gray Man, everybody. But what did you guys think about it? Are we being too hard on the movie? Did you guys think it was great? Do you agree with us and you thought it was kind of middling? Or did you even think it was bad? Do you normally like the Russo brothers? Did you enjoy Chris Evans in this film as a villain? Whatever you thought about it, comment below and let us know. Anyway, down there, if you give us a like, share, subscribe, you can always just hit this button right over here. It's going to be somewhere on your screen. It always helps us out. We really appreciate it. But even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.